Part 31. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 301. Chapter 301 Li's Humiliation. Chi Yuyan had accumulated a lot of resentment today because he failed to fight for a roll of rice paper in the study. And he was looked at so blatantly by the ordinary dressed Li at the entrance of the academy. He immediately became angry and said, "A good dog doesn't block the way. I know this is where." Ms. Li came back to her senses, her face turned blue and white, she nodded, and stepped aside. I'm sorry." The people next to Chi Yuyan glanced at Mr. Li with disdain and advised, "Brother Chi, what's the point of arguing with an ignorant poor man? It's beneath your status." As he spoke, there was some condescending pity in his eyes. "Old lady, if you were a beauty as beautiful as a flower, we, Mr. Chi, might still take pity on you and take her back as a concubine, but it's a pity that you are not. At your age don't look at people like other girls do. I'm worried that Mr. Chi will be in a bad mood and I'll dig out your eyes and throw them to the dogs." Ms. Li was so frightened that she took a step back and almost fell. Fortunately, a pair of hands behind her caught her. "Young master too has such a strong tone," a woman's charming voice came from behind Ms. Li. Li turned around subconsciously, and happened to see a woman in green clothes behind her. Behind the woman in green clothes was a little girl in Chinese clothes surrounded by people. She was standing tall and graceful with a gauze curtain on her face, and the fragrance was blowing everywhere. Li was stunned. Zhong Mian happened to come over to deliver something to Zhong Bohan. When he saw Mr. Li, he felt familiar, as if he had seen her before. He couldn't remember where he had seen her before, so he stepped forward and asked, "Old man, do you want to come in?" Li was a little embarrassed, but she had been here for so long and never had the chance to enter, and her grandson didn't come out either. In addition, she was humiliated by the two noble gentlemen. If she continued to grind, she didn't know who she would meet. At the moment he nodded bravely and said, "The little girl is here to visit relatives too, right?" Zhong Mian thought that she was here to see her grandfather. There was nothing wrong with her statement. She nodded with a smile and said, "Yes, old man, please follow me in." Ms. Li breathed a sigh of relief and kept up with Zhong Mian while thanking her. She didn't dare to look at Chi Yuyan and the others at all. The concierge saw Zhong Mian and immediately saluted, "Miss." Zhong Mian nodded calmly and continued walking inside. Li was so surprised that she opened her mouth wide, "'Cause Hu Academy is different. Even the concierge follows the rules. If I had known he was so easy to talk to, I wouldn't have hesitated just now." When the maids around Zhong Mian heard this, they all covered their mouths and chuckled, because Zhong Mian had no explanation and they did not dare to speak. Chi Yuyan and others looked at Zhong Mian and others disappearing from their eyes, their faces were extremely gloomy. Tu Kuei was annoyed that Zhong Mian had lost face and said to Chi Yuyan, "Master Chi, Miss Zhong is also your cousin. She just ignored you so much. How can you bear it?" Chi Yuyan lowered his eyes and quickly raised his head. All his emotions were hidden by him. "Tu Kuei, don't think that I don't know what you are planning. This trick of borrowing a knife to kill people doesn't work here." Tu Kuei's face became more and more ugly, and he had to force a smile to explain, "Young Master Chi misunderstood, I didn't mean it this way." Zhong Mian led Ms. Li to the garden and pointed in the direction of the school building. "Go this way. There is the person you are looking for inside." Thank you, little girl," Li thanked her nondescriptly and trotted away. Zhong Mian laughed and shook his head, turned around and walked in the other direction. Yang Santi and Yang Sizhuang just came out of Zhong Bohan's side. They met Zhong Mian on the road and immediately greeted her, "Come to deliver tonic soup to Grandpa Zhong." Zhong Mian nodded with a smile and glanced at them narrowly, "Did Grandpa give you extra classes again?" "How do you know?" Yang Sizhuang looked surprised. Yang Santi had a headache and frowned. Good sister, we really feel Grandpa Zhong's preference, but can I give up this preference and let Sizhuang enjoy it exclusively? Yang Sizhuang glared at Yang Santi with an unkind look. Third brother, I don't mind letting Grandpa Zhong give you extra classes. Zhong Mian was worried that the two of them would quarrel, so she quickly changed the subject. I just met an old man when I entered the academy. He looked kind-hearted, but I couldn't remember where I had seen him before. Now that I saw you two, I finally remembered that the old man is somewhat similar to you. She just didn't want the two brothers to quarrel about their grandfather. She didn't expect that after hearing this, Yang Santi and Yang Sizhuang all changed their faces and ran away as fast as possible. Zhong Mian was a little confused. Is it possible that we really know each other? In order to find out what happened, she asked her servants to bring the tonic soup in, and she ran after the Yang Santi brothers. This side of the school building. Mrs. Li stood cautiously outside the window, listening to the sound of Lang Lang reading inside, and then secretly glanced at the gentle and elegant scholars. She looked intoxicated and murmured to herself, "It's great. It's not like us farmers same." This was the first time she had entered a place like this, and it was also the first time she had seen the world of scholars. Something seemed to break in her mind, slowly breaking into pieces. She didn't understand it, couldn't figure it out, but just didn't want to leave, as if I can't get enough of watching those people reading. A pair of hands behind her shoulder put on her shoulders but could not make her turn her head. She only gently put her fingers on her lips and murmured, "Don't make any noise, my grandson is busy reading." Yang Santi had a question mark and an exclamation mark on his forehead, took a look inside, and then walked around to Li's side to take a closer look. The questions in his eyes deepened. "Which of your grandsons is in there?" Li Shihaishale said, "My two grandsons are in there. Their surname is Yang. One is named Yang Santi and the other is named Yang Sizhuang. They are awesome." Yang Santi crossed his arms and looked at Li with interest. "Your grandson Santi Sizhuang is in there, so who am I?" "How do I know who you are?" Mrs. Li glanced at Yang Santi with some annoyance, and was immediately frightened. "Santi. You brat, how dare you tease me?" Li became angry out of embarrassment and chased Yang Santi and slapped her on the head, raising her palm heavily and then gently falling down. She turned around suddenly and found that Yang Sizhuang and the little girl who had just given her directions were laughing like crazy. Ms. Li felt even more disgraceful, and was so angry that she wanted to deal with Yang Santi again. Yang Santi hurriedly stopped Li and coaxed him, Grandma, please calm down, my grandson is going to end up in trouble. What should I do if I'm injured?" These words were so powerful that Mrs. Li immediately stopped moving. She just glared at this grandson angrily and stuffed the bundle into his arms. "Grandma just can't take it easy. Come here and see you. It's done. You can also see it. Yes, I'm going back." Looking at the old lady like this, she is angry and cannot be coaxed. Yang Sizhuang hurried over to admit his mistake, and Zhong Mian followed him to apologize to Mr. Li. Ms. Li looked at Zhong Mian in confusion. "Does the little girl know my two grandsons?" Yang Sizhuang hurriedly introduced, "Anai, Mian is the girl who was kidnapped and trafficked by the Mao brothers back then. She was taken in by my mother-in-law. She is also the granddaughter of Dean Zhong. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over." Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 302. Chapter 302 Recognize the current situation. "I've met the old lady." Zhong Mian solemnly gave Mrs. Li a blessing. Looking at the young lady in front of her, Ms. Li always felt uncomfortable and a little inferior. No, the girl is too polite." Yang Santi said carelessly, "Sister Mian, Sizhuang and I have to go back to class. Please help us send Grandma out." We will discuss the rice paper later. Sorry for bothering you. Zhong Mian was angry and funny, and rolled her eyes beautifully. That's what I said. Since we are Ant's family, I, Zhong Mian, will definitely protect you. You can go back. If you need anything, ask the servant to come over and say, take care of yourself. Wait. Good news for you. Definitely, the two brothers bowed and left. Zhong Mian also led Mrs. Li outside the academy. Is this your first time in Fukan, madam? Li nodded, a little absent-mindedly. Zhong Mian said enthusiastically, if this is your first time here, you should try the pastries from Sue's pastry shop near Kuzhu Academy. I will take you around. Li originally wanted to refuse, but seeing Zhong Mian's enthusiasm, she was afraid that she would appear stingy by refusing, so she had no choice but to agree. Mrs. Zhou was busy in the shop. When she saw a guest coming, she hurriedly said hello, but she didn't expect that it was Mr. Li. Old lady, why are you here? Ms. Li walked around the counter and came out to greet her. Zhong Mian saw that they knew each other and seemed to want to reminisce about old times, so he politely bought some peach cakes and other snacks from Madame Zhou, and bought another one for Li before leaving. As soon as Zhong Mian left, Mrs. Zhou immediately chased Mrs. Li and asked, why did the old lady come with the eldest lady of the Zhong family? Just now I thought I was dazzled. Seeing that Mrs. Zhou knew Zhong Mian, Mrs. Li immediately asked, does she often come to you to buy things? Mrs. Zhou shook her head, that's not true. It's just that Miss Zhong often goes to Dongli Villa to look for triathlons. She has become very familiar with my family's promise after going back and forth. What? The old lady doesn't like Miss Zhong. Mrs. Zhou was very surprised when she saw something was wrong with Mrs. Li's face. Miss Zhong was famous for her noble status and approachability. She never carried anything. Even when she went to the academy to deliver things to her son, people would take the initiative to talk to her if they happened to meet her. Say hello, she is the only one who has seen such a kind lady. Ms. Li sighed, a little awkward, not really, I just feel that she is a high-ranking lady from a rich family, and we, a small family, can't reach that high level. Madame Zhou was stunned for a while after hearing this. Old lady, your family is not a small family. My mother-in-law has been made a marquis by the emperor, and we in Kuzhu Mansion will never find anyone with a more noble status than her. Don't you belittle yourself. Ms. Li choked and sighed again, the boss's wife has made such great strides in recent years. The old lady, can't keep up. I don't know what kind of wife Santisi village will marry in the future. Mrs. Zhou said without thinking, if you want to marry, of course you have to be like Miss Zhong, who is a good match. Mrs. Li was not very happy. I have a rich family that has been built up by generations of ancestors, and I have the confidence to speak and do things. I am a rich man who came from a humble background and became a monk halfway. It is not suitable. I think it is better to find someone who knows the basics. Just be filial to the girl. Mrs. Zhou probably guessed Mrs. Li's thoughts, so she couldn't continue to discuss this matter. She changed the topic and immediately pointed to the pastry and said, try this pastry. My grandma taught me this pastry. If it weren't for her help, I might not be able to do it now, still working a fishing boat to earn a living. Mrs. Li was not unhappy when she heard this. Instead, she smiled cheerfully and said, we are all a family, so we should help each other. By the way, it's time for your boys to get married. But you have a girl you like. Mrs. Zhou quickly shook her head. He said that we will discuss it after the provincial examination next year. If you are lucky enough to win, then you will be promoted. It can be said that it is a better girl. If you don't win, it will not matter. Let's find someone from a similar family. The important thing is to be sensible. Be filial and sensible. As soon as Mrs. Li heard this, She knew that Mrs. Joe had a candidate in mind, but she had not yet chosen the candidate, so it was not easy to say in detail. The two sat for a while before Lee followed the coachman back. Mr. Joe saw her mother-in-law going out happily, and when she came back she brought something with her, but she was a little uninterested, so she hurried over to inquire with concern. Lee shook her head dejectedly, her eyes shifted from Joe to Sunyan, and sighed, "I still like you like this. You all get along easily. If in the future, the 3 irons and 4 villages marry a girl from a wealthy family, I don't even know how to talk to others." Mr. Joe looked confused and asked cautiously, "Did something unhappy happen to my mother-in-law?" "That's not true," Mrs. Lee breathed a sigh of relief again. She couldn't say that she went to see her grandson. She was teased by a group of noble gentlemen in the academy, teased by her grandson again, and made a fool of herself in front of a group of juniors, one of whom did it twice. Seeing her in trouble, the lady of the house has embarrassed the boss's wife. Not wanting to continue this topic, Mrs. Lee shared the snacks made by Madame Joe with everyone, and moved closer to Sunyan. "From Erden's house, Grandma has something to ask you for help with." Sunyan quickly put down what he was doing and said, "Grandma, if you have anything to say, just tell me. She has been here for so long, but no one from her husband's family has taken the initiative to ask her for help, and Mrs. Lee is the first one." Lee she glanced at Yang Arya and said, "Arya, Grandma is hungry and wants to eat the bacon porridge you made. You go and help me cook a pot, and we will eat it with these snacks." Yang Arya didn't know what was going on, but she was obedient and went out immediately. Seeing her leaving, Mrs. Lee immediately said eagerly, "Grandma has been thinking about it for a while, and it would be better to marry Arya to Fukin, far away from her troublesome father, and she won't be afraid of being taken advantage of in the future." Mrs. Joe was hesitant to speak several times, but Mr. Lee didn't give her a chance to speak. "My grandma doesn't have high requirements. She just needs to find Arya a well-off family. For example, she has a few acres of land at home, and she also has a lot of money. Just have enough housing, be down to earth and hard-working, have a kind family, and don't engage in those vain things." Sunyan listened carefully. Seeing that Lee had nothing to say, he immediately raised his eyebrows and asked, "That's it?" Lee she nodded, "That's it." She originally thought that Yang Arya could borrow the money from her big house and find a rich family to marry in Fukin. However, what she had just encountered at Kuzhu Academy poured cold water on her. Those young masters from wealthy families, in addition to his wife, he also had countless concubines. The second girl in her family has no capable parents or brothers to support her. If she gets married as she wished, she will be in constant trouble in the future. She could trouble her eldest son to take care of her once or twice, but she couldn't let her eldest son take care of Arya for the rest of her life. After thinking about it, she could only give up her calculations and look at Yang Arya's marriage rationally. "Grandma, I have remembered all the granddaughter-in-law you mentioned, and Arya is not very young. Don't worry, I will choose carefully, and I will definitely choose someone who satisfies you." Sunyan solemnly accepted the matter. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 303. Chapter 303, Yang Arya's Choice. Ms. Lee breathed a sigh of relief, her anxious heart was relieved, and she immediately went out obediently. Joe caught up and asked in a low voice, "Anayang, didn't you say before that you would let Arya get married to the Su family and marry Arya to the Su family if things didn't work out? Why did you suddenly change your mind?" Lee gave a wry smile and shook her head with a self-deprecating sigh. "I used to be self-righteous, but going out today is an eye-opener. How capable we are of carrying such a big bowl, Area is not worthy of Suzuki. She has been living in Rongsha village and thinks that the Su family now is no different from the Su family in the past. Although Sun Yuashan is a scholar, Sun Yuashan has to study a lot for a year, has to pay a lot of money to take the exam, and has a poor family. No matter how capable you are, you can't always help your parents' family. It is said that a scholar can be worshipped by 3 generations. Most of the scholars will be just scholars until they die, but they are not diligent in their work. It is really not worth spending a woman's whole life just for the reputation of a good scholar. Generally, people who love their daughters are not. I am more than willing to marry my daughter to such a family and endure hardship. Yang Arya is diligent and hard-working, and earns a lot in Li's view. There is no need for her to suffer this crime. Just because of such concerns, Li has not said this for a long time, and only regards the Su family as the last resort. Alternative. But seeing Mrs. Joe's shop doing booming business today, and hearing Mrs. Joe's plans for her son's marriage, Mrs. Li knew that Yang Arya was out of luck, and her previous worries were just like a joke. Joe secretly breathed a sigh of relief. She had always felt that her mother-in-law's idea was very naive and she took it for granted, but she couldn't say it. After all, there was no mistress in charge of the second house. After all, her aunt was a little worse. She said too much about her mother-in-law. I'm afraid my mother thought she was too lenient and didn't want to see her niece well. Now it's best for Mrs. Li to think for herself. After the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law left, Hairpin came out from the corner silently, put down the tea, and told Sun Yan what he overheard. Sun Yan glanced at her lightly and said slowly, Hairpin, I kept you by my side because of your cleverness. Don't be fooled by your cleverness. I don't like these little tricks of yours. Hairpin's eye was frightened to death and hurriedly knelt down to admit her mistake. Second, young madam, I don't dare. It's not that I eavesdropped on purpose, but I happened to be there carrying tea and it was really hard to show up, so I listened to a few words. Sun Yan waved his hand and let her go down. Yang Arya didn't understand that she just went to make porridge, but when she came back she felt that everyone was not quite right, especially Sun Yan, who always looked at her with a somewhat inquiring look. She touched her face strangely and said, Second cousin-in-law, is there ashes on my face? Sun Yan shook his head, looked away, and asked as if unintentionally, Arya, tell me, what kind of person do you want to marry in the future? Yang Arya's face turned red instantly, her eyes wandered, and she didn't dare to look at Sun Yan. Second cousin sister-in-law, why did you ask about this? Since you call me second cousin-in-law, what's wrong with me paying more attention to you? Sun Yan said it as a matter of course. Yang Arya's face gradually returned to normal, and it took a while before she mustered up the courage to say, Second cousin sister-in-law, can I not get married so early? This answer was somewhat unexpected from Sun Yan. What do you think? Yang Arya looked at the door longingly and murmured, although my sister and I had a mother before, we were born with a mother and not a mother. If nothing happened to my mother, I would have become a mother now. He looked like that and spent his whole life in a state of confusion. Fate gave me the opportunity to make a new choice. I saw the abilities of my eldest uncle and my second cousin's sister-in-law. You are both women, but you can live a prosperous life without depending on a man. Even my eldest sister is the same. If she hadn't been the eldest sister, she would have had more and better choices for my father and our future. I am luckier than my sister. I have the opportunity to choose, so I don't want to just do it. I want to get married hastily. I also want to earn money to support myself and help my sister share the burden. Is that okay? These words touched Sun Yan so much that she couldn't come back to her senses for a long time. Through Yang Arya, she seemed to see herself in the past. Everything seemed to be just yesterday, and it seemed that it was so far away from her that no one else could see it. Mention it, she couldn't even remember it. Yang Arya waved her hand in front of Sun Yan, a little cautiously, second cousin sister-in-law, can't you? Sun Yan came back to her senses and looked at Yang Area with a more complicated and gratified look. Of course, as long as you want to, there's nothing wrong with it, but you still need to ask grandma and grandma about this matter, so I don't think so. I can't be your master, but you can stay here with peace of mind. If you want to make money, study hard and work hard. Don't worry about getting married. Thank you, second sister-in-law. Sun Yan smiled brightly and continued to do her work carefully with her head down. Sun Yan turned around and told Mr. Li tactfully what Yang Area meant. Li, however, secretly wiped away her tears, scolded Yang Lao and stopped mentioning her granddaughter's marriage. In the house, Yang Area counted some money he had saved during this period and called Yang Fugui, brother, would you like my second sister to help you study, just like Li Gui? I know you didn't go before because our family had no money, and you didn't want to. It will increase the burden on me, but I have saved a lot of money now, that's enough, you don't have to worry. Yang Fugui still shook his head and decisively rejected Yang Area's kindness. Why is this? Yang Area was really puzzled and sad. She did so much just to hope that her family would get better and better. If everyone had money, they would send their brothers and children to school. Is it wrong for her to do this? Yang Fugui lowered his eyelids to cover the gloom in his eyes. Second sister, your idea is very good, and I don't want you to be disappointed, but our biological mother Qian sold herself into slavery. Even though my father has severed ties with her, the blood relationship cannot be broken. I can't become an official even if I study. Why bother spending all that wasted money? It's pretty good for me now. I can work with my second cousin here, and I can go to work in the workshop when I go back to the village, or I can go build houses for others with my uncles in the village in the future. There's nothing wrong with that. Yang Area hugged Yang Fugui and cried loudly. The incident reached Sun Yan's ears. Sun Yan sighed and asked Yang Erden to deliver a letter to the capital. In a blink of an eye, the day of the government examination arrived. Since there are 3 consecutive exams, the first 2 exams take 1 day each, and the last exam takes 2 days, which is equivalent to the candidates having to stay in Gongyuan for 4 days. Although the weather in April has warmed up, the nights will still be cold. Ms. Li has been extremely worried since she learned about the situation in the imperial exam, so she asked her family's driver to take her here before dawn. When the time came, the outside of Gongyuan was crowded with many candidates and their accompanying family members. Li looked around in panic, unable to see anything clearly with her old eyes, and kept asking Yang Erden, have you found it? Have you found it? Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 304. Chapter 304 Yang Xiahua's Medical Skills. Yang Erden and Ruolai stood on the carriage and looked out. It took a lot of effort to see Yang Santi and the others, and they quickly took Li over there. Ms. Li saw her 2 grandsons' eyes were red. Have you brought all your things? 4 days, but you have to stay in there for 4 days. You can live and sleep in there. Li had many questions, and Yang Santi and Yang Sizhuang patiently answered them one by one. Ms. Li burst into tears when she heard that she couldn't eat or sleep well in Gongyuan. If it weren't for the fact that all scholars had to go through this, she would have wanted her 2 precious grandsons not to take the exam. At 15 o'clock, the gate of Gongyuan opened, and thousands of candidates lined up to receive the preliminary examination. They were led by 4 children holding lamps and entered 4 examination rooms respectively for the next round of examination. When Li saw those majestic soldiers, she didn't dare to say anything. She watched her 2 grandsons inspecting and entering the Gongyuan. The sky turned white, and she found that her vision was much clearer, but her 2 grandchildren could no longer be seen. Go back, Li said in a low mood. Yang Erden quickly asked the coachman to drive the carriage over, and helped her get into the carriage and go back. In the next 4 days, Mr. Li lived like a year. When he had nothing to do, he followed Yang Xiahua to Tao's place to sit there. The two of them could have a better time by chatting. See Yang Xiahua applying medicine to Guo's eyes. Li came over curiously and asked, "What is this? I've never seen you use it before." Yang Xiahua used to treat Guo first with acupuncture, then heated a pot of herbs to smoke her eyes, and then asked Guo to lie down and close her eyes to sleep. This was completely different from the treatment methods of doctors in the city. Li has seen it several times, but she didn't expect that this time it would be a different story. Yang Xiahua explained, "Grandma, the treatment methods are all step by step. Aunt Guo's previous illness was more serious and she couldn't take strong medicine, but the medicine was weak and could not achieve the effect, so I took an extra step to smoke her eyes. Now her eyes are the situation has improved a lot, and medicine can be applied in a more direct way, so we naturally choose a better method. This ointment contains a certain dose of the 5 poisons. It has an overbearing effect, but the effect is obvious. In addition to external use, the medicine I gave Aunt Guo also contains the 5 poisons, so the effect is so obvious." Li's eyes widened, she took a breath of air, and asked tremblingly, "Are the 5 poisons you are talking about like scorpions and centipedes?" Yang Xiahua nodded and introduced the 5 poisons to everyone. The 5 poisons are snakes, scorpions, geckos, centipedes, and toads. In fact, all poisons are the best medicines if used properly. If the best medicines are not used properly, they will become poisonous. It turns into poison. Generally, doctors are not knowledgeable enough to use poison to save people. If the dosage is not controlled well, it will kill people. Ms. Li turned pale with fright and shouted anxiously, "Then you?" She didn't expect that Yang Xiahua would be so bold as to use poison to treat Guo's illness. If the disease was not cured and the person died, she would not be able to explain it to Jiangning. Seeing that Mrs. Li was as anxious as an ant on a hot pot, Mrs. Tao laughed out loud, "Don't worry, mother-in-law. Dr. Yang has great medical skills, so there will definitely be no problem." Hearing this, Mrs. Guo nodded in agreement, "My mother-in-law is right. My eyes have been treated for so long with little effect. But Dr. Yang treated me for more than a month, and I can even see blurry shadows in my eyes. If you look carefully, you can roughly guess whether the person in front of you is old or young, fat or thin." So amazing, Li was stunned. She remembered that when she met Guo for the first time, Guo said that she could only see some light, but now she can actually see the outline of people. The effect is too amazing. Mrs. Tao kept watching Ms. Li's face change and laughed happily, "Mom, not to mention Xiaokai's mother's eyes, even my legs have become much more comfortable recently. I used to wake up at night because of leg pain and couldn't sleep anymore. Now, I have been using Dr. Yang's method during this period. Even if my leg pain attacks in the middle of the night, I can still endure it. Sometimes the pain is relieved and I can sleep again. Take a look, am I feeling much more energetic recently than before?" Mrs. Li looked at Mrs. Tao's face for a long time and exclaimed, "It's true. You see there are fewer white hairs. How did you do this?" Her heart was moved. Hearing this, Mrs. Tao's smile deepened. "Chunyua and Xiaolu always compliment me when they see me these days, saying that I am young. I just think they are flattering me. Now even my mother-in-law says this, so it is probably true. Real money is more real than real money." Li became more and more excited as she looked at it. She looked at Yang Xiahua and narrowed her eyes. "Thanks to Dr. Yang, the medicine she gave me was extremely bitter, but the effect is really incredible." Li immediately looked at Yang Xiahua longingly. "Xiahua, do you think grandma's hair can be saved?" Yang Xiahua was amused and nodded strangely. "Grandma, I will take your pulse after I finish my work and prepare a medicinal diet. You can take it for a long time. You are not sick and you don't need to take medicine." That's okay, Li thought about it carefully and felt that what Yang Xiahua said made sense, so she was no longer confused. Li's attention was attracted by this matter, but she didn't stare at the mansion anymore. 4 days passed in the blink of an eye. When Yang Santi and Yang Sizhuang returned to Dongli Villa, Ms. Li suddenly remembered that her 2 grandsons had finished their exams and hurriedly greeted them. Steward Zhu asked his servants to boil several pots of water, and then brought in 2 pieces of bath soap made at home. By the time Yang Santi and Yang Sizhuang finished taking a bath, the chef at the inn had already prepared a large table of delicious dishes and set them up for them to eat with open stomachs. The 2 brothers finally felt comfortable after eating and drinking enough. They lay in the rocking chairs under the shade of the tree and didn't want to move. Yang Xiahua just came back from outside. When she saw this scene, she walked over and said, "Brother Santi, Brother Sizhuang, there is something I want to discuss with you." "Sister Xiahua, sit down quickly." Yang Sizhuang stood up, made room for her, and asked a servant to bring another chair. Yang Santi pushed the cakes and tea in front of her affectionately. "Have something to eat, have you just come back from grandma's place?" Yang Xiahua put down her medicine box and said softly, I want to tell you that I'm leaving in a few days." Yang Santi's face changed slightly, and he asked calmly, "But we didn't entertain you well. Now that the imperial examination is over, we brothers can take a break. Do you want me to take you out to play?" Yang Xiahua shook her head and looked at them with gratitude. "No, I still want to practice medicine everywhere and increase my knowledge." No, no, how can a girl like you run around?" Yang Santi was so anxious that he refused to agree to anything. Yang Sizhuang next to him was calmer and asked curiously, "Sister Xiahua, have my grandmother and aunt been cured of their illnesses?" Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 305. Chapter 305 Farewell. Yang Santi reacted immediately and hurriedly said, yes, my grandmother's illness is so troublesome that you have been thinking about it for a long time. If you want to leave, you must at least wait until they are cured before leaving. In my opinion, we can treat it here for 2 years first. Look at the effect after 2 years. If there is an effect, continue to persist. If there is no effect, give up. I can also find some famous doctors to give you some advice. Even if we don't go out, our medical skills can still improve, right?" Yang Sizhuang nodded vigorously. "My 3rd brother is absolutely right. Sister Xiahua, you'd better stay. There are people here who need you." Yang Xiahua looked at the 2 brothers in a funny way, pursed her lips and said, "But I have already treated Grandma Zhang and Aunt Guo to a good extent." "Yes, my grandmother and the others still need them." Yang Santi suddenly stopped talking midway through his words. His eyes widened in astonishment and he looked at Yang Xiahua in disbelief. "What did you say? You cured them?" Because the reaction was too big, Yang Santi knocked over all the tea on the table. Yang Sizhuang looked like he was demented and couldn't come back to his senses for a long time. Yang Xiahua was afraid that they wouldn't believe it, so she said, "You can come with me to Jiang's house tomorrow and you will find out." The next morning, Yang Santi and Yang Sizhuang got up early. Their eyes were dark and blue, and they looked like they had insomnia. Yang Xiahua shook her head helplessly and followed them into the carriage. Yang Santi hesitated to speak several times. Yang Sizhuang couldn't help but confirm again and again, "Sister Xiahua, have you really cured my grandmother's legs and my aunt's eyes?" Yang Xiahua shook her head rigorously. Yang Santi was about to breathe a sigh of relief when he heard Yang Xiahua say, "Strictly speaking, I only alleviated their symptoms and greatly improved their condition. It is difficult and almost impossible to fully recover. But if it is well controlled, the condition will not worsen and will gradually improve, but the course of treatment will take a long time, maybe 3 to 5 years, or 10 or 20 years, it is hard to say." The 2 brothers looked at each other, feeling equally excited and worried. Wait until we arrived at Jiang's house. Aunt Chunyua opened the door for them and was very surprised to see them coming so early. Young Master Yang, third and fourth master, why are you here so early today? The old lady hasn't gotten up yet. Grandma goes to bed so late now. Yang Santi was a little surprised. Tao Shi often gets up before dawn because of pain in her legs. It's almost twilight today, but she's still sleeping? Aunt Chunyua was puzzled. The old lady has been like this recently. Maybe the two young masters don't come back often, I don't know. Speaking, she invited the three of them into the house and served them fresh goat's milk, honeydew, chrysanthemum cake, red bean cake, and a hot seafood porridge. Yang Sizhuang frowned subconsciously when he saw the seafood porridge. Seafood is cold in nature. Didn't the doctor say before that grandma and aunt are not allowed to eat it? Aunt Chunyua hurriedly looked at Yang Ziyahua and carefully replied, the old lady and the eldest lady like to eat seafood. Dr. Yang said that the amount of food is not a big problem, so the slave did not dare to put more, so she put some fish fillets, shrimps and oysters, and just a little bit of kelp. Yang Ziyahua nodded, yes, that's what I meant. It's not a big problem to eat some in moderation. They already have a bad appetite in the morning. Allowing them to eat something they like can keep them in a happy mood, and they will be in a good mood and all diseases will go away. Aunt Chunyua, the seafood porridge is pretty good, try it? When Yang Sizhuang heard this, he stopped talking. He scooped a spoonful of porridge and found that the seafood porridge had a slightly spicy taste, which was a bit more delicious than ordinary seafood porridge. What's added here? Yang Sizhuang was very surprised. Yang Santi also took a bite, and his reaction was the same as Yang Sizhuang's. Aunt Chunyua still looked at Yang Ziyahua. It was given by Dr. Yang. He said that this spice can neutralize the coolness of seafood and is just right when cooked together. The two brothers showed admiration in unison. After eating a bowl of porridge, the two of them felt warm in their stomachs, and a warm current flowed from their stomachs to their limbs. The laziness they felt in the morning disappeared at this moment, replaced by full energy and vitality, and their appetites were good. A lot. The brothers ate one or two more cakes and drank the bowl of goat's milk to finish their breakfast. Just as Mrs. Tao came out of the house, she smiled so much that the wrinkles on her face almost turned into chrysanthemums when she saw them eating so cleanly. The brothers observed carefully for a while and found that Tao Shi walked much more smoothly than before. Before, he relied on crutches to support him, but now the crutches were useless and only provided an occasional boost. This treatment effect is really great. Before they could finish marveling, Mrs. Guo also got up. In the past, Mrs. Guo had to hold onto the wall wherever she went, but now she could go out with a crutch and could walk towards them accurately. 3 irons, 4 villages. Dr. Yang, why are you here so early today? As she spoke, she directly touched the edge of the table and sat on the chair. Her movements were so smooth that the two brothers were stunned. Yang Santi stammered and asked, Auntie, can you see me? Mr. Guo grabbed Yang Santi's hand that was waving in front of her eyes. I can only see roughly, not completely, but I'm very satisfied. Yang Sizhuang came over excitedly, Auntie, can you see what color I'm wearing? It looks like honey and black gold. It can't be red gold. My aunt's eyes are not sharp enough yet. Ms. Guo felt a little embarrassed. Yang Sizhuang said, what you said is already very close. I am wearing amber yellow today. After saying that, he bowed solemnly to Yang Ziyahua, Sister Ziyahua, you really are Hua Tuo alive, I am really convinced. He felt ashamed that he had questioned Yang Ziyahua's medical skills before, and at the same time he was very puzzled about where Yang Ziyahua's powerful medical skills came from. They were enlightened together. Why could Yang Ziyahua learn such skills in a short period of time? Yang Ziyahua blushed and shook her head modestly, I don't dare to compare with Hua Tuo. The master who taught me medical skills is more powerful. The master said that medical skills are improved over time, so I need to travel around and take time to truly departure. Ah! Dr. Yang is leaving. Mrs. Tao looked disappointed and reluctant to leave. Yang Xiahua was at a loss and didn't know how to explain to Tao Shi. Before she could speak, Tao Shi smiled with relief. Grandma is reluctant to let a girl like you go out and make a living. There are so many bad people out there, how can you, a child, protect yourself? Yang Santi was also worried. Grandma is right. Just like you, traffickers will target you when they see you alone. You can't think that there are no bad people in the world just because you haven't met them before. Look at the eldest lady of the Zhong family. There are people following him when he comes in and out, so he is worried about the bad guys. So, if you really want to leave, go with the people from the agency to find my aunt in the capital. The most indispensable thing in a place like the capital is people, and there will definitely be patients with difficult and complicated diseases. With my aunt protecting you, what? Don't be afraid. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fensti. Chapter 306. Chapter 306. The eldest lady is very courageous. This is a good idea. You can learn more by going to the capital, and you can study medicine, treat patients, and save people without delay. Tao Shi laughed and looked at Yang Xiahua hopefully. Yang Sizhuang also advised, Sister Xiahua, haven't you seen Xiahua for a long time? She is in the capital. If you don't go find her, she will definitely cry when she finds out. Yang Xiahua, who was still hesitant at first, decisively agreed after hearing this. Yang Santi silently gave Yang Sizhuang a thumbs up. The two of them saw Yang Xiahua treating Tao and Guo with their own eyes and were completely convinced. Since we are going to the capital, we have to wait for the results of the government examination. Then Yang Xiahua can follow the letter and enter the capital. Since I want to leave, I have to tell Mrs. Li and the others. Li's reaction was particularly great and she kept urging Yang Xiahua to stay. Yang Santi saw that she was in trouble, so he told Yang Xiahua that she was going to the capital to find Zhang Ning. Li immediately stopped persuading him and secretly took Yang Erden to write a letter to Zhang Ning. Yang Erden was full of confusion. Grandma, if you want to write to my grandma, you can go to Santi Sizhuang. They are more knowledgeable than me and their handwriting is beautiful. Why do you have to come to me? You don't understand. Mrs. Li took Yang Erden to the study and whispered, I want to discuss the marriage of the 3 iron and 4 villages with your mother-in-law. This matter is not suitable for them to know. You have to keep it a secret. Yang Erden just felt baffled. He didn't know what Li was thinking until he started writing the letter, and he was very shocked. Grandma, do you want our family to marry Uncle Yang Han's family? Mrs. Li smiled and nodded, sighing, I have been in contact with that child Xiahua during this period, and I found that child is really amazing. You said that if there is a doctor in our family, there will be no need to worry about any headache or fever in the future. If you have enough money, you can get medical treatment from your own family. How wonderful it is. Yang Erden was dumbfounded by this reason, because Li insisted that he could only bite the bullet and write those words in. Li also said a lot of things that Yang Erden couldn't understand. He wanted to ask, but Li didn't want to say. After all, he was just a ghost writer. If he asked too many questions, Li would slap him. In order to avoid suffering any physical pain, he silently told Li, write down all the messy things you said, and add at the end, the above are Anai's original words and have nothing to do with me. After finishing the letter, Mrs. Li read it with satisfaction for a long time before collecting the letter with great care and gave it to Butler Zhu to send to the Guang'an Marquis mansion in the capital. A few days later, the results of the government examination finally came out. Butler Zhu sent people into the city before dawn to guard the list. After the list came out, Zhu-san rushed back to Dongli Villa as if he was running, the second young master, the third young master and the fourth young master, I got it, I got it, I got it all. Everyone who was waiting in the big house went out and excitedly gathered around Zhu-san asking questions to confirm that Yang Santi and Yang Sizhuang had passed the examination. Yang Erden immediately asked people to hang firecrackers to announce the good news, and quickly returned to the house to write to Jiangning. Letter. The villa was bustling with excitement to celebrate the two newly born children. Zhou Mian heard the news and came to the door with congratulatory gifts. A group of boys and girls raised their glasses to the moon and talked loudly. Zhou Mian was still young and no one allowed her to drink, but she became stubborn and insisted on drinking as much as she could. After 3 rounds of drinking, Zhou Mian became a little tipsy. With the help of alcohol, she approached Yang Xiahua and asked, "Are you going to the capital to find Aunt Zhang?" Yang Xiahua nodded. "But have you packed your luggage?" Yang Xiahua continued to nod. Zhou Mian smiled knowingly. "When are you going to set off?" Yang Xiahua was confused and only remembered a rough idea. "The boat will arrive at about 9 o'clock, and we will go north to change the carriage." Zhou Mian chuckled, "You're drunk. Can you get up tomorrow?" "Well, it's really possible that I can't get up. What should I do?" Yang Xiahua muttered to herself. Zhou Mian stood up suddenly, shaking violently. "Don't worry. I'll help you. Let's get on the boat and keep drinking." Butler Zhu. Prepare the carriage and wine. The first ray of light in the morning coats Dongli Villa with a layer of golden color. Zhou Mian's maid Guo woke up from a hangover, rushed out of the guest room with a headache, and shouted in a panic, "Miss, miss." What responded to her was an empty echo. Guo was shocked and woke up completely. He rushed out of the yard and shouted. Steward Zhu hurried over. Guo was so anxious that she cried, "Butler Zhu, have you seen my young lady?" Steward Zhu looked stunned. "Didn't Miss Zhou go home last night?" "When did it happen?" Guo looked confused. Butler Zhu's expression was a bit difficult to explain. Miss Zhou was drunk and insisted on boarding the boat with Miss Yang to drink. I had no choice but to ask the coachman and the guards to take them to the boat. Later, Miss Zhou got tired of playing. He said he was going back to his hometown. Miss Yang will leave by boat early this morning and will rest directly on the boat. It's terrible. Guo stamped her feet, picked up her skirt and rushed out. Finally, she returned to Zhou Mansion, only to find that Zhou Mian didn't go back at all. It's better now, the whole Zhou Mansion is in chaos. Dongli Villa was also alarmed, and Yang Santi and Yang Sizhuang were all anxious. At this time, on a passenger ship heading north, Zhou Mian and Yang Xiahua woke up quietly in the swaying cabin, feeling like they didn't know where they were. Yang Xiahua listened to the sound of water outside and murmured, "It looks like the boat is sailing." As soon as she finished speaking, her eyes suddenly widened, and she looked at the hungover Zhou Mian. "Miss Zhou, why are you on the boat?" "Why am I on the boat?" Zhou Mian thought carefully. "Yesterday I obviously got on the carriage, but I felt like vomiting, so I got off again, got up again, and got off again. I don't know how many times I got off, and the carriage behind me. If you're gone, I'll come back to you and continue drinking." "Ha ha ha. Yang Xiahua, my little aunt, if you get on the boat with me so quietly, your parents will die in a hurry." Zhou Mian was very bold. "It's okay. I'll write to my family in a while to report that I'm safe. It'll be okay." "Haha, you're quite open-minded." Yang Xiahua couldn't complain. She really had no choice in dealing with such a bold little ancestor. At the Zhou family, Fan fainted from anxiety because of Zhou Mian's disappearance. Zhou Rong mobilized all his contacts to inquire around, and finally received a reply from Zhou Mian in the evening. After reading the letter, Zhou Rong was so angry that his head started to smoke. How can this be unreasonable? That girl is really becoming more and more lawless. Mrs. Fan immediately brightened up when she knew her daughter was fine. Husband, it's fine that my daughter is fine. She's just a little naughty. Don't get angry. Send someone to send news to the Yang family quickly, so as not to worry others. Before, they thought that Zhong Mian was lost in the Yang family, which caused the Yang family to panic and almost turned the entire Dongli villa upside down. Unexpectedly, it turned out that their child was the one carrying another child. A little girl got on the boat to have a drink, fell off the carriage and ran back to the boat. This made such a big fuss that the Zhong family didn't know how to apologize to the Yang family. Zhong Rong cursed angrily, took the letter and went out in a hurry. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 307. Chapter 307 The Hidden Secret of Boarding the Ship. At the same time, Zhong Mian and Yang Xiahua had already gone north, and the Zhong family couldn't catch up even if they wanted to send people to chase them. On the passenger ship, Yang Xiahua looked at the young lady beside her and sighed for the first time. You said it was inappropriate for you to leave such a good young lady alone. Why do you have to go to the capital with me? Zhong Mian leaned on the railing and looked out, not even knowing the situation. Perhaps it was because I ran away from home that time and saw the life outside the compound, so I yearned for your happy and wanton life more and more. Of course. The most important thing is that I want Zhang madam. Zhong Mian smiled and showed a row of teeth. From the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of a person sneaking out of the cabin, touching the guardrail and walking to the back. His behavior was very much like the Mao brothers who had kidnapped her. Yang Xiahua saw that Zhong Mian's expression was not right, and quickly turned around and saw the man, and frowned slightly. Do you know him? I don't know him, but that person made me feel very uncomfortable. Zhong Mian's voice was trembling as he spoke. Yang Xiahua's frown deepened, and she lowered her voice and asked, which shipyard does this ship belong to? Zhong Mian was startled, then quickly ran to the deck, looked at the flag on the mast carefully. His face suddenly changed. It belongs to the Qi family. Qi family? Yang Xiahua had no idea at all. Zhong Mian lowered his eyes and clenched his fists tightly. The person who asked the kidnappers to kidnap me was my aunt, and she married into the Qi family. I once swore that I would never visit the Qi family in my life. I didn't expect that. He actually got on the Qi family's boat. Zhong Mian was so angry that he gritted his teeth. Yang Xiahua knew that Zhong Mian had been kidnapped once before, but she didn't ask any more questions. Now that she heard what she said, she became interested. Since the other person is your aunt, why did she let someone kidnap you? Zhong Mian sat on the deck angrily, looking at the blue sea water, and said absent-mindedly, my mother is the eldest daughter of the Fan family, she is the second daughter, and the Qi family she married into is not as prominent as our Zhong family, so she always pleases my mother. He wanted my mother to arrange a marriage for their children, but my grandfather did not agree, so my mother rejected my aunt. Unexpectedly, my aunt secretly resented me and hired the Mao brothers to kidnap me. I was still so young at the time, and the Mao brothers were sure there would be no mistakes and did not avoid me when they spoke. I also learned from their mouths that I was kidnapped. The truth. Later, my family came to find me. When I returned home, I immediately informed my grandfather and mother about the matter. My mother was furious and led people to beat up the Qi family in person. The two sisters completely fell out with each other. My aunt still felt that she had been wronged, so she went to her parents' house to cry. Unexpectedly, my mother's revenge was just an appetizer. My grandfather had tens of thousands of disciples, so he took action and dealt a heavy blow to the Qi family. At that time, the Qi family was the first shipping company in Kuzhu. Now when it comes to Kuzhu Shipping Company, who can think of the Qi family? Su Shi can't argue. Now the cheese boat company mainly carries passengers and there are no big ships. The Chi family was angry with their aunt. Although she did not divorce her, she kept her in confinement in Zhuangzi and showed a low attitude towards admitting her mistakes and making amends. Therefore, my grandfather did not continue to embarrass the Chi family and allowed the men of the Chi family to study in Kuzhu Academy. As he spoke, Zhou Mian thought of something in a daze, and Huo Ran grabbed Yang Xiaohua's hand. I remember, I was so drunk last night. Although I fell off the carriage, I shouldn't be able to run back to the boat to look for you. Yes, I woke up next to you in the morning. Yes. This is also something I can't understand. Yang Xiaohua licked her lips that were chapped by the sea breeze. Thinking of that sneaky person, she always felt that there was something wrong with it. Zhou Mian also realized this. The two exchanged glances and followed the man tacitly. Walking back, they realized that it was the direction to the wheelhouse. Behind the wheelhouse was a cramped cabin used for cooking. They were straddling the guardrails and cabin bulges, allowing them to hide themselves perfectly. They could eavesdrop on the people inside without being discovered, but it was a bit dangerous. If they were not careful, they might fall into the sea. Yang Xiaohua was afraid that Zhou Mian would fall, so she kept holding on behind her. In the cabin, two sailors who were cooking had a dispute over drugging. Qi Guangsheng gritted his teeth and tried his best to break free from Qi Guanggen's restraint. Let go. Qi Guanggen looked indifferent. If I let go, will you just listen to me? Qi Guang was very angry and said, Guanggen, this is my business. I don't want to involve you, so don't meddle in your own business. As he said that, he tried his best to knock Qi Guanggen away, but found that he was no match for him. Qi Guanggen still shook his head. It's fine if I don't know. Now that I've caught you, I can't ignore it. After all, we have many brothers on the ship, and we don't want you to get involved. After hearing this, Qi Guangsheng suddenly became excited. Is it because of me? How dare you say such a thing? If it weren't for the Zhou family, our Qi family would still be the first shipping company in Kuzhu, and our lives would not be easy. I'm so miserable and all I'm doing is revenge. It's only natural. I don't believe that the brothers on the ship are as greedy for life and afraid of death as you are. Since the business of the Qi family has plummeted, life has become difficult for the Qi clan members. They all say that it is easy to change from frugality to luxury, but it is difficult to change from luxury to frugality, not to mention that he has a bad habit of burning money and likes to gamble. Not only has he lost all his family wealth over the years, but he also owes the gambling house more than 10 taels of silver. In the past, he would have ignored the money for more than 10 years. Now, the money for more than 10 years is like a huge mountain to him. He was out of breath. When he was already very anxious about money, he happened to meet two girls boarding the boat for a drink in the middle of the night. So he first focused on Yang Xiaohua's baggage and spent a lot of effort to get the baggage. Unexpectedly, there was not even a penny in it. In order not to attract Yang Xiaohua's attention, he secretly returned the baggage, just in time to hear Zhou Mian introduced himself to his home after being drunk. At that moment, he suddenly had an idea. Such a pretty little girl should be worth a lot of money if sold. It can also relieve the hatred in his heart and kill two birds with one stone. Qi Guangsheng spoke righteously, and Qi Guanggen looked at him deeply, with unclear meaning. This is a ship, and whoever is louder is not justified. If you really want to take revenge, you had plenty of opportunities to kill her when you deceived her into the ship that night. That's right. If you push people into the sea and drown them, no one will suspect you. Wouldn't revenge be faster like this? Now that the eldest daughter of the Zhou family is sober, she even sent a letter home. Everyone knows that she is on the Qi family's ship. Once something happens, it will definitely be a fatal blow to the Qi family. You said you are taking revenge and venting your anger on the Qi family. Can I believe it? Qi Guangsheng was furious when he saw that the other party was not getting enough oil and salt, but he could only be furious. Yang Xiahua saw Zhou Mianmian's expression was ugly and gave her a look, and the two of them retreated to the deck. What should we do? What should we do now? Zhou Mianmian was a little uneasy. None of her maid guards had followed the ship. There were only 2 weak women and a messenger boy from the Yang family. How could 3 people carry it? Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 308. Chapter 308 Being Calculated. Don't be afraid, as long as I'm here, nothing will happen to you. The more critical the situation, the calmer Yang Xiahua becomes. This has been the case for these years and she is used to it. She stood up, patted the dust on her body and stretched out her hand towards Zhou Mianmian. Let's go back first and discuss countermeasures. This passenger ship is not big, but the guest rooms in the cabin can accommodate 50 people. There are only 3 of them on this trip, and there are 47 guests. The ship is full. It can be judged from the content of the conversation between the two just now. Then the target of Zhou Mianmian was impromptu and not premeditated, so there was no possibility that the other guests were fake. The Qi family's business has plummeted now, and they cannot let a large number of passengers on this passenger ship have an accident, otherwise the shipyard's business will have nothing to do with them. Thinking of this, Yang Xiahua felt a lot more settled. At this time there was a knock on the door in the corridor. Zhou Mianmian in the room suddenly shrank his pupils and said silently, "Did they take action?" Yang Xiahua is still waiting and watching. Qi Guanggan's voice came from outside, "My lord, it's time to have your meal." Zhou Mianmian suddenly shook his head wildly at Yang Xiahua, "You can't open the door." Yang Xiahua stopped her silently, letting Zhou Mianmian lie down on the boat, and went to open the door herself. If the other party made any changes, she would not be polite. What was surprising was that the other party just handed over the food box and left without saying anything extra. Yang Xiahua saw him delivering food to the next guest room, and hesitated for a while before closing the door. Zhou Mianmian stood up immediately when he heard the movement. "Sister Xiahua, why did you put the things away?" "That's no problem." Yang Xiahua's concise words blocked Zhou Mianmian's many persuasion. "How is that possible?" "You heard it just now." Zhou Mianmian got off the bed to help. The two took out all the food. Yang Xiahua smelled it carefully and said with certainty, "No problem, the other party really didn't drug us." Seeing what Yang Xiahua was trying to eat, Zhou Mianmian was so anxious that he couldn't stop her, leaving her in a panic. Yang Xiahua finished eating calmly. After half an hour, nothing happened. Zhou Mianmian was stunned. "It's really no problem." At this time, her stomach growled unsatisfactorily. Yang Xiahua looked at her funny. "Do you want to eat? We didn't bring any extra food, and we're on a ship. If we don't eat, we won't be able to make it to the shore." Zhou Mianmian gritted her teeth and quickly ate all her cold food. As night falls, the dinner delivered this time is just as good. Yang Xiahua said, "Maybe that person successfully dissuaded the other person and the other person didn't dare to mess around." Zhou Mianmian shook his head, "It's impossible. He spent so much effort to get me on board, and he would never give up so easily." As he was talking, a woman's heart-rending shout suddenly came from outside. Before the two of them could react, the door of the cabin was banged and banged. "Help! Help! My mother-in-law is going to give birth. Is there a stable woman on the ship? Is there a doctor? Help my mother-in-law, help me mother-in-law!" The shouting was very urgent, and disappeared quickly from one end to the other. From the sound, the other party must have gone downstairs to find the sailors on the ship for help. What can the old men do in this situation? Yang Xiahua hurriedly went down to the ground, picked up the baggage and told Zhou Mianmian, "I can't wait until death without saving him. You wait here and I'll be back as soon as I go." Zhou Mian didn't dare, so she pulled Yang Xiaohua's clothes and begged softly, "Can I go with you?" "But it's the birth of a child, don't you think it's unlucky?" Yang Xiaohua was a little embarrassed. Zhou Mian shook his head vigorously. Helping, Yang Xiaohua could only take her with her. The two of them found the cabin after looking for the shouting. As soon as they opened the door, they saw a woman holding her belly and screaming in fear. Opposite her was a man, with his back to Yang Xiaohua and the others, and he was grabbing the mother's shoulders. The mother was in tears and looked at Yang Xiaohua with guilt-filled eyes. No, Yang Xiaohua realized that she had been deceived. Just as she was about to rush out with Zhou Mian, she found that the cabin door had been locked from the outside. The man slowly turned around and gave them a sinister smile. "Miss Zhou, you're fine." Yang Xiaohua regretted it very much and protected Zhou Mian behind her. "If anything comes to me, don't plot against my sister." "Your sister? She is just a female doctor, and she is also the sister of the eldest lady of the Zhou family. Who gives you the face? Since you are in my hands tonight, don't blame me for being rude." Qi Guangsheng touched his chin and quickly looked at Yang Xiaohua, and the others approached. There was no suspense for a big man to deal with two little girls. Soon Yang Xiaohua and Zhou Mian were thrown on another bed. After doing this, Qi Guangsheng smiled happily, opened the window and looked out. The sea at night was pitch black, and he couldn't even see the reference object, but he showed a weird and crazy smile. It's almost. In 2 days. The ship will dock, and we will sell you to a brothel. Do you know what a brothel is? It's so nice there. Beautiful girl with smooth and tender skin." The more he spoke, the more obscene his smile became. The woman begged bitterly, "Guangsheng, don't make the same mistake again and again. They are just innocent children. Let them go." Qi Guangsheng directly shook off the woman's entanglement and threatened angrily, "Just be patient and don't talk nonsense. If you ruin my good deeds, I will throw you into the sea to feed the fish." The woman was so frightened that she didn't dare to say anything for a moment. After Qi Guangsheng left, the woman looked at Yang Xiaohua, and Yang Xiaohua guiltily, weeping silently, "I'm sorry, he is obsessed, but I can't stop him, I'm sorry." Zhou Mian was furious when she heard this. Unfortunately, her mouth was blocked and she couldn't speak at all. She could only stare at the woman angrily. The woman did not dare to look at her at all, but she still apologized guiltily and murmured in a low voice, "Our life was not like this before. If he hadn't been desperate, he wouldn't be so crazy. If I want to blame you, I blame you for your bad luck. I'm thinking about it. Listen to my advice and wait patiently to get off the boat. Guangsheng has a bad temper. If you are too noisy, you will be beaten by him and you will suffer. But the result is not the same. Everyone on this boat is surnamed Qi. Even if everyone fights fiercely among themselves, they will definitely think of helping their own family immediately when something happens. I am no exception. Although he forced me, but now that I have reached this point, I can only if you continue to make mistakes, you can hate me if you want." The woman is still crying. Zhou Mian was so angry that she almost fainted. Seeing that her fussing was useless, she was about to find Yang Xiaohua to find a solution when Qi Guangsheng suddenly rushed back to the cabin angrily. The woman looked worried. "What's wrong?" "But brother Guangan doesn't want to help you." "That old man." Qi Guang beat the bed angrily and said a lot of unpleasant words before lying down triumphantly. "So what if he doesn't agree? I have already people. If they don't help me, they will wait for the revenge from the Zhou family in the future. Ha ha ha." At this moment, Qi Guanggan led a group of people into the cabin and beat Qi Guangsheng angrily. The woman felt distressed and kept begging. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fence Tea. Chapter 309. Chapter 309. The First Step in Revenge. Qi Guanggan looked at the woman who was hugging his leg tightly and cursed, "For the sake of your mother-in-law, I won't deal with you today. When this matter is over, we can have a good fight with her." Having said the harsh words, he immediately had Yang Xiahua and Zhou Mian taken away. While everyone was sleeping at night and there was no one outside, they successfully brought the two of them to the wheelhouse at the back of the first floor. Only here was the safest place and the least likely to be discovered. Qi Guanggan threw them in, locked the door and left. The light in the helm room was dim, with only 2 oil lamps emitting faint light. After Yang Xiahua made sure there was no movement outside, she quickly untied the rope from her hands, quickly untied the rope from her legs, and removed the cloth from her mouth. She did so in one go, leaving Zhou Mian stunned. After packing up her belongings, she immediately went to untie Zhou Mian's rope. She lowered her voice and whispered in her ear, "Keep your voice down and don't alert the people outside. Now it's our turn to fight back." Zhou Mian was shocked. "Sister Xiahua, why are you so calm?" Yang Xiahua winked at her mischievously, as if it was a matter of course, "Because I was just acting from the beginning. From the moment I overheard their conversation, I knew that person would definitely take action. If one plan fails, there will be another one. We have to stay on this ship for 2 days, and there is no way to guard against thieves for 1,000 days, so I take the initiative to capture them, so that we can know who is innocent and who deserves to die. You are so awesome. You are so smart. From today on, you will only be ranked behind Aunt Zhang in my heart." Zhou Mian has turned into Yang Xiahua's little fangirl. The door of the wheelhouse was locked from the outside, and they could not go out openly. There was a window on the other side, and outside was the sea. What should I do? Zhou Mian had no idea what to do, but when she saw Yang Xiahua slipping out of the window neatly, she was so frightened that she dared not come out. He waited until he was sure that Yang Xiahua climbed up safely before sticking his head out. He didn't dare to say anything or ask anything. Yang Xiahua was like a monkey here, clinging to the rope hanging from the mast, and quickly reached the outside of the second-floor wing. Then she opened the window of the guest room where Qi Guangsheng and his wife lived as quickly as possible, and got in. Zhou Mian was very worried. He kept leaning out and accidentally touched the rudder without noticing it. She strained her ears and listened carefully to the sounds above, but there was no sound, only the sound of crashing waves kept coming. About an hour later, Yang Xiahua finally followed the rope back to the wheelhouse. Before Zhou Mian could ask, she took the initiative to tie up their hands and feet, and snuggled up with Zhou Mian to sleep peacefully. Unconsciously, it was bright on the sea, and there were waves of footsteps overhead. Qi Guangyan was so angry that Qi Guang couldn't sleep that night. He couldn't hold back and fell asleep until dawn. Before he could sleep for long, a woman's frightened and shrill screams came from the boat. Qi Guangyan thought of the 2 little girls in the wheelhouse, and was so frightened that he rushed out of the room. Hearing the sound coming from upstairs, he quickly followed the sound. The moment he pushed the door open, Qi Guangyan, who had seen strong winds and waves, also he was so frightened by the scene in front of him that a chill inexplicably rose from the soles of his feet and shot straight up. The guests who came with us were also frightened out of their minds and fled in panic, shouting, killing people, help! There are gangsters on this boat. Ah! My belly, Mrs. Qi Guangsheng suddenly hugged her belly and fell to the ground in pain. Qi Guangyan calmed down as quickly as possible and ordered with a solemn face, "Take the Guangsheng family away first, seal this wing, and report to the official after the case is settled." "No, brother. Have you forgotten the 2 little girls in the wheelhouse? If you report to the official, the government may not know who to arrest." A sailor stopped him eagerly. Chi Guanggen's expression changed and he hurried downstairs. When they arrived at the wheelhouse, they found that the door was locked and there was no sign of it being opened. After opening the door, Yang Xiahua and Zhou Mian were huddled in the corner, sleepy, but staring at him warily again. Chi Guanggen secretly breathed a sigh of relief and closed the door again without saying anything. It wasn't them. Chi Guang laughed angrily. Captain, who do you doubt? Do you doubt those two girls? Even if they have great abilities, they can't kill Guangsheng quietly. He saw everything just now. Half of Qi Guangshen's body was outside the window. The outside of the boat, the floor of the cabin, and the bed were all covered in blood. It was probably that all the blood had been drained from his body. He was dying in a panic, and his hands and feet were struggling. Traces, he should have been conscious before death, but unable to call for help. How could two little girls do it? Qi Guanggen rubbed his eyebrows with a headache. Besides Guangsheng's enmity with the two girls, who else wants his life? Captain, you have forgotten that these two girls have an accomplice, that young man from the Yang family, Qi Guangfa reminded. Qi Guanggen looked solemn, took a deep breath, and walked to the deck. Let's check on that person first, don't act rashly. After all, they are members of the Yang family, and Guang Inho is still very popular with them. The Qi family has already offended the Zhou family, and the Yang family must not be involved again. Others had different ideas, but they still followed Qi Guanggen's wishes. Such a serious murder occurred on the ship, and people were panicked. Everyone fled and crowded on the deck. Cheng Ping, the young boy of the Yang family, was looking for Yang Xiahua and Yang Xiahua in the huge crowd. He looked around for several times but saw no one. He was so frightened that he cried, "Has any of you seen our girl? Who has seen it?" Everyone shook their heads. Cheng Ping immediately walked into the cabin and climbed to the second floor in one breath. He searched all the rooms outside the murder case but couldn't find a single person. He collapsed on the deck in fear. The people around him couldn't bear it and came to try to dissuade him one after another. Qi Guanggen and his party were observing in the dark. Seeing that Cheng Ping's reaction was not pretending, they became even more confused. At this moment, a person hurriedly came to report, "Captain, it's bad, Mrs. Guangsheng is about to give birth, and none of us can do it." Qi Guanggen's expression suddenly changed and he hurried over. Shui saw him as if he had seen a savior, with tears in his beautiful eyes, pitiful and pitiful. "Guanggen, save me, save our children." Seeing Qi Guangfa and the others chasing after him, Qi Guanggen said loudly and with a guilty conscience, "Don't worry, I will definitely find someone to save you and your child. After all, you have Guangshen's blood in your belly. I just don't know who on the ship can help you." Shui seemed to have grasped a life-saving straw and said urgently, "The girl who was by Guangsheng is a female doctor. She can help me." Qi Guanggen frowned subconsciously, "But they have been by us. Will they still help if they know our true identity?" Qi Guang became anxious. "Captain, when has this happened? Why are you still worrying about what others are doing? Anyway, it was Qi Guangsheng who did it. Now that he is dead, we can blame everything on him and comfort the two girls. It is said that doctors are like parents, so that female doctor would not refuse to save someone." Shui begged and cried, "Help me, help me." Dressed as a mother-in-law, she leads the whole family to turn over. Author, Bamboo Fensti. Chapter 310. Chapter 310 The Second Step of Revenge. Qi Guanggen struggled for a while, then gritted his teeth and ordered, "Go and bring those two girls over. Remember, secretly, don't let them cause trouble." Qi Guangfa was stunned. "There are people on the deck, and you have to go through the deck to bring them here. How can you make them cooperate quietly?" A trace of cruelty flashed in Qi Guanggen's eyes. "If you don't obey me, I'll kill you." Qi Guangfa took a breath of air and hesitated. At this time, Mr. Shui screamed out in pain again. He didn't care so much and called two brothers to hurry up and get someone. The wheelhouse door was opened. Chi Guangfa frowned and looked at Yang Xiahua and the two. Which one of you is the female doctor? Zhou Mian stood up silently. Chi Guangfa shouted with a bad attitude, you, come out and save people. Be honest, or I will kill your companions. Zhou Mian nodded obediently and was untied by them and led out. When passing by the deck, Chi Guangfa quickened his pace, but Zhou Mian suddenly shouted, Changping, help. Changping suddenly turned around and shouted, stop. Chi Guangfa's complexion changed drastically, and he rushed to the cabin with Zhou Mian in his arms. Zhou Mian kicked Chi Guangfa repeatedly, scratched Chi Guangfa's arm with the dagger Yang Xiahua had given her in advance, rushed out of the narrow gap nimbly, and ran behind Changping in one breath. Changping was both happy and frightened when he saw that Zhou Mian was fine. At this time, Chi Guangfa and his men also chased after them, spat on the ground, and approached them fiercely. If you don't eat the toast, you will be fined, brothers. Come to me. All of them are tied. The other ship passengers were angry, and they went out to do business with guards. Zhou Mian shouted crisply, I am the eldest daughter of the Zhou family in Kuzhu Prefecture. The Zhou family has a feud with the Qi family. They intend to murder me. Today you have uncovered their scheme. They will definitely kill people to avoid future troubles. Everyone, do you want to die on this boat? Everyone's expressions changed drastically. Chi Guangfa was even more angry and stamped his feet, sure. I've been fooled. The top priority is to save people. Chi Guangfa hurriedly defended, it was all a misunderstanding. We suspected that they were related to the murder on the second floor before we controlled them. We definitely had no intention of harming anyone. Chi's Boat Shop is a time-honored brand in Kuzhu Prefecture. It's impossible to do something evil like that. Humph. It was obviously your people who kidnapped me and Sister Yang. Now that the woman is about to give birth and no one can be found, Sister Yang has to take action. What about a murder case? Do you think little girls like us can kill her? A strong man? They tied us up last night, Zhou Mian said firmly. Changping was furious, okay. How dare you treat the eldest lady of the Zhou family like this? I will report this to Marquis Guanjin, and you just wait to die. A landowner behind Changping was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. Brothers, are you mentally ill? You never say harsh words. What if they bite people in a hurry? Changping glanced at him apologetically, so we must unite. They have less than 10 people, and we have 50 people. We are not afraid of losing. Chi Guangfa looked very ugly. At this time, his brothers finally brought Yang Xiahua over. Third brother, she is the female doctor. Yang Xiahua blinked at Zhou Mian, and the two exchanged glances. At this moment, Zhou Mian's dagger was quietly transferred to Changping's hand. Zhou Mian also moved when Changping burst out, using a hairpin. The two men caught Chi Guangfa by surprise and injured Chi Guangfa and his men again. Bitch, a man behind Chi Guangfa rushed towards Zhou Mian angrily. Seeing that Zhou Mian was about to be arrested, the landowner used all his strength to knock him down and pin him down. With his nearly 200, the weight of 5 kilograms made the other party unable to move. Lao Lu, Chi Guangfa's eyes were about to burst. Just after shouting, there was no movement. He fell to the ground with a thud, and his pupils gradually dilated. The landowner was so frightened that he unconsciously suppressed the man below with all his strength. He swallowed nervously and said, "This is a dead man." Wow, several boat passengers cried out in fright and moved away from Yang Xiahua. The remaining sailors also ran back to the cabin in fear. Only Zhou Mian rushed to Yang Xiahua excitedly, "Sister Xiahua, you are so awesome." Changping looked around with vigilance, stepped forward and said, "Let's get out of the way first." Okay, Zhou Mian nodded obediently. Seeing that they were about to leave, the landowner hurriedly shouted, "Help me! Sir, the little boy is here." The two boys struggled to help the landowner up. He just stood up and took out a breath, threw his head to the ground, and ordered in disgust, "Tie him up, master." The two boys hurried over, but were frightened. "Master, he is dead. He was crushed to death by you." The landowner was frightened, dripping with cold sweat, and his eyes kept moving back and forth. Seeing that everyone else was staring at him in fear, he could only bite the bullet and walk to Zhou Mian and the others, dejectedly. "I killed someone too." Changping patted his shoulder comfortingly, "It's okay. As long as our Marquis and the Zhou family are here, nothing will happen." The landowner smiled a smile that was uglier than crying, "I hope so." In the cabin at this time, Shui was in so much pain that he had no strength left. When Qi Guanggan learned that Qi Guangfa had been killed and a brother was injured, his expression gradually became ferocious, with murderous intent flashing in his eyes. "None of those people can be left alive." Everyone gasped, "Captain, those are 50 people. If they all die, our Qi family will be finished." "What are you afraid of? Accidents are everywhere at sea, and capsizing a ship is common. There is nothing to worry about. Now that they are outnumbered, we can only temporarily surrender." In the blink of an eye, he had already thought about what to do next. He took out a packet of medicine powder from his arms, which was clearly the packet of medicine Qi Guangsheng took yesterday. Having made up his mind, Qi Guanggan quickly walked out of the cabin, knelt on the deck and explained tearfully, "It is true that someone kidnapped Miss Zhong and Miss Yang last night, but we were also kept in the dark about this matter. The instigator is now dead. I know that there is no proof. No matter what I say, no one will believe it, but I still have to shamelessly ask Miss Yang to save her. As long as Miss Yang is willing to save people, I will agree to whatever you want. We will definitely compensate everyone for what that beast Qi Guangsheng did. What happened today was all caused by my lax supervision. Please give me another general. A chance to redeem one's past. If his attitude is sincere and he cries and begs, his heart will soften immediately." Zhou Mian pulled Yang Xiaohua's sleeve and shook his head at her, "Don't believe him." Yang Xiaohua lowered her eyes, raised a faint smile with unknown meaning, and raised her head again, still looking harmless. "I can save her, but I am not a stable woman, and I don't know how to deliver babies, and how can I trust you?"